If you only try one Christmas painting this year, this should be it. The tricks I'm about to share with you will take your holiday paintings from nice to whoa, how did you do that? So, what are we waiting for? Let's jump right in. I'll just pull out some supplies really quickly. We of course need some watercolor paints, a paper towel, and some clean water, and then we'll need some brushes. I'll be using my Craftimo brushes today. I think I'll pull out a number 10 round and the number 6 round and maybe the number 1 rigger. And I'm happy to announce these are back in stock right now, so I'll leave a link for those in the description of this video if you're interested. A couple of other things that we'll need for today is some masking fluid. This isn't actually mandatory, but it definitely can help make things easier. I also have a cheap brush to use with the masking fluid just so I don't risk ruining one of my nicer, more expensive brushes. I also have a small oil brush here that has some more coarse or stiff bristles to use for the bokeh effect that we'll be trying today. In fact, I actually did a piece just last week with the bokeh technique and it turned out really cool. So you'll have to give that one a try also if you haven't yet, but we did use a lot of these same tools for last week that we are using today. And lastly, to help create that bokeh look, I have a circular template here as well. And as a side note, all of the tools and the supplies you see me using today will be listed with the links in the description of this video if you'd like to look into anything further. Now, we do need to do a tiny bit of drawing on this piece today, but the good news is that it is super easy. So let me quickly show you what we have going on here. And for those of you who would rather just skip right to the fun of painting instead, I will also have this outline available in my Etsy shop in a larger size like this, as well as some smaller card sizes as well. So you can just print these out and trace them right onto your watercolor paper using a light table or even just a well-lit window in your house. And then you can just jump right into painting. But if you would rather draw this for yourself, all you have to do to get started is draw a circle for the initial ornament shape. I like to just use a cup or something to trace around to get this perfectly round. And of course you can choose how big or small that you want your circles to be. Then after you have that initial circle shape, you can add a soft peak or V shape coming off of the bottom of the ornament here to create some fun character. And then you go ahead and just erase that extra line that you don't need anymore. Then I'll add a rectangular shape up at the top of the ornament, and you can even add a ruffled bottom edge to this, again just for some extra fun. I will also add an oval or circle shape on top of that, and a line extending upward to represent the hook of the ornament, and that is all there is to it. Now today I'm planning to add some fun little frills to my ornament to finish off the look, and you can draw whatever kind of design suits your fancy. I'm just going to maybe draw some swirl lines and loops and maybe a few circles or dots added to that. So here I have my larger 8x10 watercolor paper that I've drawn 3 ornaments on, but you can choose how many you want to do. You can make a smaller, more simple card with just maybe 1 or 2 ornaments, or you can do a larger piece like this with up to 5 ornaments, just whatever you want to try. There is a lot of leeway for creativity with this piece. All right, I'm just going to tape this off really quickly with some artist tape. This is going to serve 2 purposes for me today. First, it helps prevent a bit of warping from the paper, but it also is going to create a bit of a border around the piece, which will really set off the overall look in the end. Now, the tape I'm using is a bit thinner in width, so I'm just going to double up on this, but if you have a more thick artist tape, then you're all set to go. Now, one last thing I'm going to do really quickly because I plan to have my ornaments very light in value today. I don't want a lot of leftover pencil marks showing in the end, so I'm just going to take a kneaded eraser, roll it up into a hot dog shape, and then roll it across my drawing to take off some of the loose graphite and lighten up the drawing a little bit. Okay, before I start putting some paint on my page, this is where I'm going to pull out that masking fluid that I showed you earlier. I'll take this cheap brush here, but I have added a little bit of liquid soap in the bristles to help clean this fluid out later. And then I'll just take some of the masking fluid and start masking off the ornament shapes. I plan to have these ornaments very light in value with a darker background surrounding them. So having them masked off just helps make painting in the background a little bit quicker and easier, so I'm not having to be quite so careful around all of these. But with that being said, if you don't have masking fluid handy, then you absolutely can still paint this piece by just painting around the ornaments instead. I'm just going to go ahead and block off all 3 of these ornaments really quickly, then we'll let that dry and we can start adding in some color. So I'll skip through this a little bit quicker so we can get to that next step. But you'll notice as I start to get to the end of this, the sun is going to come through my studio window over here. So I am going to go block that off in just a minute so that it won't be in the way. Okay, I've covered up my window and my masking fluid is now pretty much dry, so I think we are ready to move on. Let's go ahead and pull out a few colors onto our tray really quick. Now, you can use whatever colors you'd like for this. Today, I'm in the mood to try some blue in the background, so I'll pull out a little bit of ultramarine blue as well as maybe some phthalo blue to add a bit of variety in there. Then using the number 10 round brush, I'll take some water from my brush rinse bowl here and start painting in the background area going around the masked off ornaments. Now I can move pretty quickly here getting this water in and then later the color because I'm not having to be quite so careful on this part, so that masking fluid really helps a lot. We will be painting this background using the wet on wet technique, so having this nice wet layer of water on here initially is really going to help our paint colors blend and spread. All right, now that I have the water in place in the background, we can start adding in the color. I think I'll start with the ultramarine blue first and focus that mostly around the edges. I want the edges to probably be the darkest area, but I will also take some of that color and spread it out more towards the center a little bit as well. Okay, that's a really good start. Let's add in a touch of that phthalo blue now, and I might even mix it a little bit with the ultramarine blue on my tray, just so it's not such a stark difference. But then I'll start applying this color in and around the ornaments, and then blend it into the ultramarine blue color on here as well. I find that the more water you have on initially, then the more the paint is going to run and blend and spread. So it's important to have a good balance there. And you are going to want to work quickly so that you can get the entire background covered in color before it starts to dry on you, because that can cause problems of its own. Something else that can help spread this color, I didn't do it today, I'm just using my brush to help spread the color out, but if you tape your paper down to a separate board, then you can pick up the painting and tilt it back and forth and let that color drip and spread on its own just by using some gravity. So that might be worth a try if spreading it with a brush proves to be difficult. The good news is that this doesn't have to be perfect and flawless, because we are going to be adding in that bokeh technique later. That can really diminish some of the blemishes that you might feel like might be in there. So just hang in there and we'll see how this turns out. All right, I think that is good enough. Now we do need to let this dry completely, so this is a good time to stretch your legs and take a quick break, and then we'll return and finish this off. Okay, here I am again, and it looks like my painting is dry now, so let's move on to the next step. This is where we get to pull out our circle template and our coarse oil brush to create that bokeh look. This is super easy to do and really looks neat in the end. So all you have to do here is take a bit of water in your bristles, pick a circle size that you like, and rub that water and the brush around and around in that template circle area. This is just going to soften and take off a bit of that paint and color on here, and then you can take your paper towel and dab off that extra color and water, and voila, a lovely soft circle shape. You can choose to use different sizes of circles if you want to. I did that last week. Today, I think I'm going to keep them about the same size. And generally, the more you scrub and the more water you use, then the more paint is going to come off. So keep that in mind, and you can create some of these at slightly different values. But you do want to be careful not to scrub so hard that you damage your paper either. So go ahead and just give this a try and add as many or as few of these fuzzy background circles as you want or feel like looks good. This process can take a few minutes to complete, so just sit back and enjoy it. You don't need to be in a big rush. I am really glad that you're joining me for this painting today. The Christmas season is so much fun, and painting something like this just adds to that. If you find that you're enjoying my painting and teaching style, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming tutorials. Okay, great job. Now I know that took a minute to finish off, but doesn't it look so neat? I just love this. It looks so festive and so fun. All right, I think we are now ready to paint in the ornaments, and then we can call this painting done. So let's go ahead now and pull off the masking fluid. You can use a good eraser to help get this off, but there are still some pencil marks on my page, including my swirls on the ornaments, that I do want to be careful not to erase. So I'll probably rub this off mostly with my fingers. Now, I am planning to have my ornaments appear like they are white in color, but I do still want a little bit of dimension on them. So I'm just going to take a touch of Payne's gray and maybe mix it with a very small amount of some ultramarine blue that's already on my tray and use this as a bit of shadow color on the ornaments to help them not look quite so flat. So using the number 6 round brush, I'll take just a touch of water and paint that in the areas where I plan to place in this color. I'm not painting over the entire ornament right now. I still want there to be some nice pure white spots on here. I'm mostly just focusing it around the edges, I guess. Then I'll take a touch of that very watered down paint and add in some hints of color in these areas. The key here is to not put too much color. What I like to do is paint in just a strip of that Payne's gray, then I'll wet and dry my brush and use the damp bristles to sort of spread and soften the color out a little bit more. I really want to leave the center of the ornament more white. I like to always start with just a small amount of the shadow color first, but then sometimes I do feel like I need to add in some more, so I can definitely do that later on, but it's usually easier to add more color in later than it is to take it off. So I tend to be cautious at first. Okay, good. That really does help give a bit of shape and dimension to these, so I'll just go ahead and add a bit of shadow color to the other 2 ornaments next. Okay, good enough. I like that. So let's go ahead and add in the finishing touches to these ornaments, and we can call them done. I want to add some gold accents to my piece today, and there are a couple of ways that you can do this. You can mix up a golden color using normal watercolor paints. I like using a bit of raw sienna and mixing maybe just a touch of gamboge in there. That tends to make a really nice golden looking color. But if you happen to have some gold metallic paints, that is also a really fun option. I do have some that I really like, so I'm going to pull those out today and give them a try. I'll just take a touch of this here and start painting that around the edges and maybe on the shadow side of the top part of this ornament, just so that it matches with the shadow side of the ornament. Then I'll wet and dry my brush off and use the damp bristles to gently spread some of that color out into those white areas of the paper that I left out to create more of a lighter highlighted side. And that is all there is to it. So I'll just go ahead and paint in the other two ornament tops now in the same way. Very good. Now to finish off the look of these, I'll switch over to my rigger brush now and use some of that gold paint for the circle and the line hooks up on top. I am also going to use the rigger brush and this gold paint to paint in the fun swirl accents on the ornament balls as well. Now, something that I have people tell me when painting in thin lines is that it's hard for them to do sometimes because they don't have a very steady hand. And if you've watched some of my other Christmas tutorials from this year, there have been times that instead of trying to paint on the thin lines with a brush, I've just used a marker or even just a colored pencil or something and have just drawn them on instead. So just whatever works best for you here. Okay, wow. I really like how that turned out. It probably doesn't show much on my video very well, but here in person, that metallic gold looks really shiny and glittery. It's a really beautiful addition to this. But that, my friends, is actually it for this piece today. It's a very simple one, but it also has a really soft, pretty wintry feel to it as well, just right for the Christmas season. I'm so glad that you joined me today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.